Hello and good day to you. I hope you're having yourself an amazing Monday evening, if you're watching or listening from Kenya, and I hope you're having yourself an amazing day if you're watching or listening from abroad. This is the Black Hot Fire News Update on a beautiful Monday evening. It is 5 minutes past 7 p.m. on the 15th of April 2024, and we are here, of course, to look at all the dramas, all the propaganda, all the theatrics that was served over the weekend. And of course, we're going to be looking at news from all over Africa. We're going to be looking at the Iran attack and how several leaders have come out to condemn it, including Kenya's President William Ruto. Kenya's President William Ruto looks like he's siding with Israel and came out to condemn the Iran attack on Israel and asked Israel to exercise restraint and not uh, retaliate, not attack back. We're going to be looking at also how life is getting a bit easier in Kenya. With the Kenya shilling doing amazingly against the dollar, it is at 127 right now, and how that led to a drop in electricity prices and, of course, a drop also in fuel prices yesterday, with fuel prices going down by set to go down by the highest margin for over the past 5 years. So yesterday it went down by 5 shillings, but it looks like it is gonna go down by 18 shillings by the end of this month. So that is good news because it is going to reduce the cost of living. We're going to be looking at that. And then our main focus, we're going to be looking at something that is just but a highlight on the corruption levels in this continent. So apparently, 2 Kenyan athletes and 1 Ethiopian are accused of fixing the Beijing half marathon to favor a Chinese runner. I'm going to be sharing a video of the same, and I'm going to let you decide for yourself whether that was match fixing. So there were these 2 Kenyan athletes, one called Kiplagat, the other one called Keter, and an Ethiopian one, and a Chinese runner. And in the video, and in what officials of the Beijing marathon, half marathon, are investigating, looks like the Kenyan athlete and the 2 Kenyan athletes and the Ethiopian athlete deliberately slowed down to allow the Chinese to win, and he went on to win. We're going to be looking at that. We're also going to be looking at how Rwanda has joined other African countries in recalling the J&J children's cough syrup. The J&J is a cough syrup that is manufactured by the Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is a pharmaceutical that is manufacturing a lot of medicine in South Africa. That is, since this specific drug was manufactured in 2021, and a lab test by Nigeria showed that the syrup used for treating coughs and allergies in children had high toxicity levels. So I'm going to be telling you about that. We're going to be looking at how in Tanzania at least 58 people have been killed by 2 weeks of flood. Reason being poor infrastructure, poor drainage, and so apparently when it rains in the cities, just like I shared a video of Kenya the other day, the same way in the coastal region of Tanzania, when it rains, there is not enough drainage, and now water ends up killing people, and 58 people have died over that flood. In Congo, also 15 others have died in a landslide, and up to 60 others are missing. So we're going to be looking at the landslide in Congo and how it has killed that much number of people. In Niger, demonstrators are taking to the streets to protest against foreign forces. Africa waking up. Now, demonstrators took part in a protest against the presence of foreign forces in Niger, including armed forces of the United States, which has a military base in the north of the country. They're calling for the military presence of foreign forces to end in Niger. We're going to be looking at, of course, I said the Iran-Israel battle and what it means for Africa. And lastly, we are going to be looking at how Egypt is said to receive a 1 billion short-term financial aid from the EU to help them in stabilizing the economy. This comes after the IMF gave them 8 billion for a similar purpose. It wasn't 8 billion, it was 8 trillion for a similar purpose. So Egypt now has received about 8 trillion, 1 billion in in terms of loans from the EU and the IMF to help filter them from what they called tough financial times. So, and lastly, we are going to look at how Mali's junta has banned media from reporting on political activities. This is after the whole saga that has been going on in Mali, with the Malian junta promising to hold elections by March and then not holding the elections. And now people have started questioning. You say that we are going to have a transition from military government to civilian government by March, but we've not seen even a single organization towards the same. So people are starting to question. So those are some of the things you're going to be looking at, and of course a lot of other things. So, and to start with, let us look at the Kenyan runners who appeared to have slowed down to help a Chinese national win. Let me share a video of the same so that you can judge for yourself and maybe tell me if the accusations are too far-fetched. I want you to look at the video and tell me, do you think the Kenyan athletes deliberately slowed down in order to let the Chinese national win? So the video is by The Telegraph. Don't take down my stream. It is for educational purposes. So here's a video of the same. I want you to judge for yourself. Then I'm gonna come and read you the specifics.
默契呀、
对，在今天的这个全程当中，这4个人都是一直保持在一起。
是的，而且有沟通有交流。
这样是不是也是选手之间的一种相互促进？
是的，我说积极的一种促进。
哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是完全冲刺了起来。我们来看看他最后的成绩啊！
恭喜何洁获得了我们看4个人很有默契呀、
对，在今天的这个全程当中，这4个人都是一直保持在一起。
是的，而且有沟通有交流。
这样是不是也是选手之间的一种相互促进？
是的，我说积极的一种促进。
哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是完全冲刺了起来。我们来看看他最后的成绩啊！
恭喜何洁获得了。
So in case you're just joining me, the video that you are seeing on your screen is that highlights the level of corruption we have in Africa. A level of corruption to a point that we have our athletes fixing matches to allow Chinese and other nationals to win. So on your screen, you can see 4 athletes. The two of them on the right side of the Chinese athlete. The Chinese athlete is dressed in red. A Kenyan athlete, one of them is called Keter, and the other one is called Kiplagat. The one on the far side that is alone is an Ethiopian athlete, and this is in the Beijing half marathon. And so I'm going to replay the video once again, and I want you to tell me, I want you to look at it and judge for yourself. So officials are claiming that this video evidence shows that the 3 athletes, the 3 African athletes, the 2 Kenyans and the Ethiopian, may have deliberately slowed down to let the Chinese contestant overtake them. You can even see in the video them telling him to run faster. And that is how he ended up winning the race. So this one is being investigated by the Beijing half marathon officials, and it might lead to them being banned, because this is race fixing, and it is illegal, and it is unethical, and I don't even know what to say. So I'm going to play the video once again, and I want you to look at it and judge for yourself. Do you think that the accusations are too far-fetched, or were the 2 African athletes part of a race-fixing deal to allow the Chinese athlete to win? On live video.
人很有默契呀、
对，在今天的这个全程当中，这4个人都是一直保持在一起。
是的，而且有沟通有交流。
这样是不是也是选手之间的一种相互促进？
是的，我说积极的一种促进。
哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是完全冲刺了起来。我们来看看他最后的成绩啊！
恭喜何洁获得了我们看4个人很有默契呀、
对， 在今天的这个全程当中，这4个人都是一直保持在一起。
是的，而且有沟通有交流。
这样是不是也是选手之间的一种相互促进？
是的，我们说积极的一种促进。
哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是完全冲刺了起来。我们来看看他最后的成绩啊！
恭喜何洁获得，很有默契呀。
So that is, you can't judge for yourself, and you can tell me what you think about that. But I personally think it was a race fixing because the two Kenyan runners and the Ethiopian athlete tied on second. They made sure they all tied on second. So the 3 of them finished second. And if you look at the video, you're gonna see at some point they're ushering the Chinese athlete to sorry for that to run faster, you know. And it is sad considering these people were taken there on taxpayers' money, and it doesn't matter, you know. It is unethical, it is wrong, and it just shows how it's in our blood, you know. The corruption has been so deeply, it wasn't in our blood, but it has been so deeply put in us that to the point that an athlete can get a chance to win a half marathon, but they won't, or because they want to. I don't know why they wanted the Chinese to win. Maybe they had been paid. I don't want to throw accusations, but the two Kenyans, Robert Keter and William Nangat, and an Ethiopian by the name Dejene Hailu, seemed to be making a way for him to finish fast. In fact, in the video, the three can be seen gesturing towards the finish line and apparently slowing down their pace to let the Chinese athlete win. And the Chinese athlete is not even an amateur. The Chinese athlete, in this case, is a gold medalist. He won the 2023 Asian Games marathon and won by a narrow one second margin. So, but in this video, something suspicious is happening. The Beijing Sports Bureau confirmed that an investigation was underway, and they said, "We are taking this matter very seriously and will communicate the findings to the public once investigations are complete." So they are looking into the allegation because it takes away the sportsmanship, it takes away the integrity, and it just highlights the level of corruption that we have, to a point that an African athlete will have a chance to win a race, to finish fast in a race, but leave a legacy, you know, have your name up there, but you're gonna decide. I was looking at the comments under the video, and I don't even know how the Chinese athlete was proud of this, to win this, because this has to be the most embarrassing championship he will ever win. You know, having people having people push you like a child, letting you win. So long distance running has just started gaining popularity among China's middle class in recent years. In 2018, over 250 participants at Shenzhen half marathon were disqualified for cheating, which included taking shortcuts. So it's something that the Chinese people love. So that was in 2018, the Shenzhen half marathon. 250 of them took shortcuts and they were therefore disqualified. In another instance, in 2019, a participant in the Soho marathon was filmed riding a bicycle during the race. I'm not even making this up. 2019, another one was riding a bicycle during the race, waiting for the waiting for the finish line so that he can alight the bicycle and finish the race strongly. So that is that was our main focus of the day. Sad developments, just shows how corrupt we are becoming. We have gotten as a people to a point that we are fixing. We are underperforming. We are going below our potential to let other people, to favor other people, because this is corruption. I know this was done because I'm sure this was done because money was dished out on live camera. I don't even know how in an era where so many Kenyans were invested in this race. They were sure they were gonna get gold medals, and then you look at the video and you see your runners ushering a Chinese ahead, telling him to go and finish, slowing down deliberately to allow Jie, the Chinese athlete's name is Jie, to overtake them. You can clearly see, especially here, let me show you the point that made me know. At this point, you can see the second athlete ushering the Chinese runner to go ahead. It's like, go ahead and win. Go ahead. So you can clearly see him ushering. So that was the two Kenyan athletes and the Ethiopian Dejene Hailu. So that was it with the deep state of corruption in Africa, to a point that it's still amazing sometimes can be, to a point that you can underscore your potential, because this, to me, there's no other explanation for this. For me, this has to be corruption. This has to be money being dished out to allow, somebody giving you money and telling you to allow them to win. And so in as much as you have the potential, in as much as you can beat him, you decide to give away the legacy, you decide to give away the credits, you decide to give away everything just for the money. And what was even more suspicious was the three of them finishing second, tying at second. Can't make this up. So that was Beijing Marathon and the corruption in Africa. Let us look at other news, where good news for Kenyans. Life seems to be getting easy every day, with the US dollar going down massively. The Kenya shilling gaining massively against the US dollar. It's trading at 127. Good news for Kenyans, bad news for in Kenya who earn in dollars, because that means their pay is going down massively from 160 shillings for $1 to 127. So that is a drop in about 43 shillings, a drop of about 43 shillings per dollar. So if you are earning in dollar in Kenya, that means you're going to lose 43 shillings per dollar. If you are earning $100, that means you're going to lose 4,300 Kenya shillings, and that is a lot of money. That is about $40. But in contrary, life seems to be getting easier now, with relief yesterday is the IPRA, the Energy Remuneration Commission, announcing a drop in the price of electricity, and cited two reasons for that. And one of the reasons it cited was the strengthening shillings and the reduction in fuel cost used to generate electricity. So those are the main reasons why the cost of power is set to go down starting from yesterday. And he said that was in a statement by Kenya Power's managing director, Engineer Joseph Sirgor. So customers under the domestic customer one tariff band, that is the normal customers like me, that those are customers who consume less than 30 units per month, will enjoy a 13.7% reduction, and we'll see them pay Kenya shillings 629 from 729 for similar units in March 2024. So that is a drop in about 100 shillings. That is a drop in about $1. That is for Kenyans under the domestic customer band one. Those are the normal citizens who use less than 30 units per month. I think I use more than 30 units, so I'm not in this category. Customers under the domestic customer 2 DC2 tariff, consuming average of 31 to 100 units, that is where I fall, will now pay 1,500 Kenya shillings from 1,700 in March, representing an 11.2% reduction. That is a reduction in about 200 shillings. That is $2, about $2. So looks like I'm going to have $2 to spare at the end of the month as a result of the Kenya shilling gaining against the US dollar. So they'll now pay $15 from the $17 that they would pay a month. That is customers under the DC2 tariff. Likewise, those under the DC3 tariff, those are majorly corporations that use over 100 units per month, will have a 9.7% reduction and will now pay 3,700 from 4,100. A similar huge drop was seen in February as electricity prices for all consumers decreased by Kenya shillings 3 bob per unit. So in Feb they dropped, in March they dropped, and in April they have dropped further. So those are good news. In as much as we criticize the government and everything, this is good news for Kenya. I don't know for how long it's gonna last, but for now you are gonna pay cheaper on power. A drop by 11%, 13% is a huge drop, especially in a time where we are going through the tough financial situations. $2 to spare goes a little, solves a little problems. And in even better news, the fuel prices also dropped yesterday, and they dropped by the highest they have dropped in the past 5 years. Super petrol, that is the normal petrol, reduced by Kenya shillings 5 Kenya shillings. Diesel dropped by 10 shillings, and kerosene dropped by 18 shillings. The government projects that the drop might go down even further, and they cited two things also. They cited one, the strengthening of the Kenya shilling. That was what the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, cited as the main cause for the reduction. EPRA said a liter of super petrol has decreased by 5 shillings, diesel by 10, while kerosene by 18 bob. In Nairobi, for example, super petrol will now retail at 193 bob, that is about $1.50. Diesel will retain at 180 Kenya shillings, and kerosene at 170. The new prices will take effect at midnight April 14th through to midnight May 14th. That means anybody who bought petrol today bought it at lower prices than they had yesterday. A reminder that this price is without the subsidies. The first thing that Ruto did when he took power was remove the fuel subsidies. So it's a good thing when you see fuel going down without the subsidies. And the government is projecting the Kenya shilling will go by will strengthen to a point that $1 will be at 115 Kenya shilling, and that is why President Ruto said that the fuel prices will even drop further. And of course, as you know, fuel being the main driver of the economy, that will lead to decrease in the price of commodities, decrease in the price of transportation, and fuel directly affects production and the price of commodities, in that most of the electricity we use in Africa is generated by diesel or petrol generators. And of course, also in the chain of supply, goods have to be supplied on road. And so once the cost of transportation is high, once the cost of transportation is high, then the cost of production will be high and the cost of commodities will go up. So good news for Kenya. And now let us look at Rwanda, where Rwanda has joined other African countries in recalling the J&J children's cough syrup. The J&J is the Johnson & Johnson's. Johnson & Johnson is a pharmaceutical that has been manufacturing and supplying drugs to Africa. This specific cough syrup was manufactured in 2021 in South Africa, and Nigeria, for once, did something spectacular. They took the J&J cough syrup to the lab, and they discovered high toxicity levels in the tests. The syrup that is used to treat coughs and allergies in children was recalled as a result of the test in Nigeria, in South Africa, and in Kenya, with an additional batch being recalled in South Africa. The recalled batch was manufactured by J&J in South Africa in May 2021, but it is now under the ownership of Kenyan, a spin-off from J&J last year, after a spin-off from J&J. So Rwanda's Food and Drug Authority has now recalled all the J&J children's cough syrup that is believed to have negative effects on the children, because it had high levels of what the scientists call diethylene glycol. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know how dangerous diethylene glycol is, but it is a substance linked to child deaths in other countries since 2022. So in short, what I'm telling you is J&J manufactured, Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical, manufactured and supplied cough syrup in Africa that had diethylene glycol, a substance that has been linked to child deaths. And were it not for Nigeria carrying out the lab experiment and identifying the diethylene glycol, more children would have died because nobody else had noticed. And now 4 African countries have recalled back the cough syrup. Others have not, but at least. And in Gambia, the trial of the cough syrup has resumed. The same cough syrup. It looks like it led to the deaths, killed dozens of children in Gambia. The same syrup that has been recalled. I don't know if it's the same. It has to be the same. And the cough syrup was linked to the death of children in Gambia. And in the ongoing trial, the pharmaceutical company denied allegation that it was the one responsible for the deaths of the children. They did not mention the name of the pharmaceutical in Gambia that was responsible for the death of the children. Basically, I think it is because they feared a lawsuit, and so I also don't. I'm also not gonna mention the name of the pharmaceutical that was responsible for the death of 70 children in Gambia. 70 children died in Gambia from the cough syrup that I've just mentioned that contain toxic levels of a substance that is known to kill children, diethylene glycol. But a big shout out to Nigeria for identifying the problem, and a big shout out to Rwanda, Kenya, and South Africa for recalling all the cough syrups manufactured by J&J, Johnson & Johnson's, a pharmaceutical that looks like it is on a mission. In other news, at least 58 people have died in 2 weeks because of floods in Tanzania. The reason being poor infrastructure, lack of planning. The coastal region of Tanzania was hit the hardest, with at least 126,000 people getting affected. Floods have killed 58 people over the last 2 weeks as heavy rains continue in Tanzania. Tanzania plans to construct 14 dams to prevent flooding in future. That is according to government spokesperson Buhari Matinyi. More plans, deaths right now, but all they can talk about is plans. East Africa has been experiencing heavy rains. Even in Nairobi, there were heavy rains. You remember me sharing a video the other day and Keith talking about the new expressway looking like a river. So infrastructure has been damaged, and the infrastructure was actually the main cause of this because there's no drainage. Once it rains, even if the rains are not as heavy as we perceive them to be, there's going to be floods. There's going to be, because the water does not have anywhere to escape from. So it ends up getting messy. So it's all because of poor planning, poor urban planning, not enough drainage to drain the water. That is why the streets end up getting flooded. Little rains and the streets are gonna get really flooded. I don't know if I can share a video of the Tanzanian floods so that you can see what I'm talking about. Even a little rains and the streets are gonna look like rivers. Poor planning, lack of urban planning, lack of enough drainage, because once we do not have enough drainage, then sufficient drainage, then of course people are gonna die. And that is how 58 people died in Gambia, in Tanzania. People died in Gambia too, but the ones in Gambia did not die because of floods. They died because a certain pharmaceutical supplied the children with cough syrup that contained harmful toxic substances in them. So this is Tanzania. This is how the streets look like.
Floods have killed
Little rains and there's gonna be floods, of course, because there is no drainage. For example, if you look at this point in this video, you're gonna see there's a pipe that has busted and is throwing water to the roads. What that is gonna mean is there is no escape route for the water and people are gonna die. Doesn't matter whether the rains are heavy.
With government spokesperson Mobare Matinye said on Sunday that essential supplies, including food, had been distributed to those affected. Tanzania plans to construct 14 dams to prevent flooding in the future. East Africa is experiencing heavy rains with reported flooding in neighboring Kenya, killing at least 13 people so far. In the western and central regions, flooding has displaced thousands from their homes. Infrastructure has also been damaged, and those living in flood-prone areas are being urged to move. The rains are expected to reach their peak towards the end of this month.
So the weatherman says that the rains have not even reached their peak and it's gonna get messier. That is the language from the weatherman. So if you're living in areas that are prone to flooding and you're watching from Tanzania, you need to move. You can keep asking move to where, or you can just wait until the floods are at your door, because your government does not care and you're gonna die like the 58 who died and the 14 who died in Kenya. So if you are in a flood prone areas, that is in Tanzania, that is in Kenya, you are gonna die from floods if you do not move, and your government is not gonna do anything about it. That is according to the weatherman. And Jiba Jaba is with me, and he's telling me they'll form a commission to study the study while floods keep coming. And he says, do most Kenyans know how to swim? Do they? Not really. Unless you're from the coastal region where you have a river, where you have the ocean, the Indian Ocean next to you. Most people from the coastal region know how to swim, but most people from the land, we call it bara. That is people who do not live in the coast, do not know how to swim, unless that is you went to a good school, you went to a good high school, you went to a good primary school, and you had a swimming pool in school, and you are therefore taught how to swim. And that is like 5% of the Kenyans. So most Kenyans don't know how to swim unless they taught themselves as adults. Maybe you finished school, got a good job, now you took swimming classes, which I can assure you is a very, very minute number. A very minute. It is a minority of Kenyans. So I don't know. Not many people know how to swim unless you are from the middle class. That is, you went to a good school that had a swimming pool, and you got swimming lessons in school. So that might be a contributor, because now once water hits you, you panic and you can't swim and you die. And Jiba Jaba tells me that is the same in the United States of America. And I think swimming should be introduced as a survival course, especially in early primary. But of course, I don't think that would be possible, because not many schools can afford swimming pools, can afford classes, leave alone swimming pools. But I think in the United States, you can be able to do that. You can make compulsory swimming a compulsory survival class, because you guys have access to much more resources than we have. But the people who also know how to swim, those that grew up in the villages also know how to swim. They taught themselves how to swim in the rivers. And so if you grew up in the village near a river, you know how to swim. If you grew up in the coastal region near the oceans and the lakes, you know how to swim. If you went to a good school that had a swimming pool, you know how to swim. If you got money as an adult and took swimming lessons, you know how to swim. So it's either of the four. And in Congo, a landslide has killed at least 15 people and up to 60 others are missing. A landslide happened in western southwest Congo caused by heavy rains that it killed at least 15 people and left 60 others missing. Some people are found alive after the landslide that happened near the town of Idiofa, but up to now, they are still looking for 60. All you can do is hope for the best. The Red Cross is the one that is leading in the rescue operations. And in Niger, better news, good news from Africa. Demonstrators took to the streets to protest against presence of foreign forces, that is in Niger. Hundreds of demonstrators took part in a protest against the presence of foreign forces in Niger including the armed forces of the United States, which has a military base in the north of the country. So let me just bring you up to what has been happening in Niger. So apparently, the government of Niger asked the US forces to leave Niger. But in a statement, the United States of America said that it has not received an official statement. It hasn't received an official request. They wanted something official for them to leave Niger. I don't know. Maybe they wanted an email. That is what I was telling kids. Maybe they are waiting for an email for them to leave. And so they have not left Niger as of yet, despite them knowing that the junta does not want them, the people do not want them. The reason being, as I told you, they say they are waiting for an official communication because they say the government of Niger is giving them mixed signals. Those are the words that were used in the statement. They said the government is giving us mixed signals, and now we don't know whether to leave or not to leave. If they want us to leave, they should tell us to leave in an official way, and we are going to leave. So that was the excuse that they gave. And apparently they are still waiting for an email or something from the government of Niger for them to leave. And the people were not having it, and they took to the streets, demonstrating and asking and demanding that the foreign forces, including the United States of America forces, leave Niger immediately.
The presence of foreign forces in Niger, including the armed forces of the United States, which has a military base in the north of the country. The demonstrators gathered on Saturday in the center of the capital, Niamey, at the call of civil society organizations close to Niger's ruling military junta. We have called for the departure of the Americans and all foreign forces from Niger, and the junta has taken our concerns into account. We've come to support and reaffirm our support for the CNSP in relation to the decision taken. I do not think we should be the victims of these threats, and if this continues today, it means we have to reshuffle the cards. We're going to question certain agreements because if the agreement doesn't benefit the people of Niger, I think we have to break it and suspend it. The demo comes as the West African nation pulls away from close cooperation with the US in counterterrorism efforts, turning instead to Russia for security. Russians will be here as part of a win-win cooperation, whereas the Americans, as we've seen, have been here for how many years? Well, as insecurity weakened, I'd say not, whereas with Russians, we've just recently seen that things are moving forward. Niger's ruling military council, known as the CNSP, has yet to order American troops out, but the arrival of Russian forces makes it complicated for the US forces to remain in the country.
So that is the CNSP, the Niger's military junta. It hasn't officially ordered the United States, the US Army out. I don't know why, because the US Army cited the same reason, said it hasn't been officially ordered out, and it looks like the people are fed up. The people are fed up with them. These are the people in the streets calling out the foreign forces. My only concern is that they are calling out
protest against the presence of foreign forces in Niger.
They are calling out the United States forces, but they are welcoming the Russian forces. I wish they were kicking out everybody, but that's a good step forward. You know, the fact that people are now starting to notice that you people, what are you people doing in our country? You know, because if you come to Kenya, you're gonna find a US base, you're gonna find a British Army base. You go to Uganda, you're gonna find a US Army base. You know, and we never noticed those things. We never used to see them. We just thought it was normal. The fact that we've started noticing and asking and questioning and having our eyes opened is a tread into the right path. And Jiba Jaba is telling me he learned swimming at YMCA one summer. And he's telling me a mixed signal. Niger says we need, but the US in the same situation would force. Yeah, so the US in the statement that they released said that Niger was giving them a mixed signal. And Jiba Jaba is saying the US in the same situation would use force. So I don't know what official communication they are waiting I never understood. Is it an email? Are they waiting for an email from the a statement? But also the government of Niger, the Niger's military junta should give them that, so that they can run out of excuses. If I was the Niger's military junta, the military junta, I would release a statement asking them to leave, so that if they don't now, we can go to the next step, because that is the excuse that they are using right now, so that they can look look good in the international community, talking about mixed signals and that we have not left because they have not officially communicated. Give them that, and then let's see their next excuse. Of course they won't leave, but they're going to run out of excuses now. They won't use that card of official communication, and now it would be possible for not only the junta but also for the people to kick them out, because that's possible. Because once the masses decide something, once the masses take to the streets, once the masses are fed up with a system, then the system is gonna fall. The Romans say vox popul vox dei. So once the people are fed up, you saw that in Senegal, you are seeing that in Togo right now. Once the masses decide that this system, we are done with this system, then the system is gonna fall, because the system can't work without the masses. Doesn't matter whatever the system looks like, doesn't matter how strong it is, and in at the end of the day, any counter force against the masses always work for the advantage of the masses. For example, if they decided to shoot at these protesters like they did in Senegal, then that is going to make the protests grow even more than they were. So one thing I know is that once the people are tired of a system and they rise up against it, it always falls. That has been proven throughout history. Once the masses were tired of something and they took to the streets, because no system can work without the masses. And so if this continues for the next 1 week, if this continues for the next days, then trust you me, the US Army will have no option but to leave. Together with all the military presence, together with all the 43,000 NGOs, as Jiba Jaba is telling me, they'll have no option but to leave Niger. And Niger can trailblaze. Niger can start the revolution in Africa, as you've seen. Niger is trailblazing a whole new generation of African people who are gonna stand up for their rights, who are not gonna sit down and get oppressed, who are gonna say we do not want this and you have to leave. And that is all I had today on the Black Hot Fire News update on a day where 2 Kenyan athletes are under investigation for deliberately letting a Chinese runner win a marathon. That was the feature of the day. That was what I started with. And once again, I'm gonna share the video of the same, because it's no matter what you look at, no matter what angle you look at it, it just shows how corruption has been deeply embedded into us. So I shared this video at the beginning of my show. I'm gonna share it at the end of the show, because that was the feature of the day, on how 2 Kenyan athletes and 1 Ethiopian athlete are under investigation for deliberately slowing down to allow a Chinese contestant to win the Beijing half marathon. They had the chance to win the marathon. They had the chance to get all the glory. They had the chance to bring the gold back home to Kenya, and we stayed up late watching this race, only for the 2 Kenyan athletes and the Ethiopian one to do what is called race fixing. Slow down, usher the Chinese athlete to win.
对，在今天的这个全程当中，这4个人都是一直保持在一起。
是的，而且有沟通有交流。
这样是不是也是选手之间的一种相互促进？
是的，我们说积极的一种促进。
哇，越跑越快啊！何洁在最后是
I've shared the video once again because it just highlights how corrupt Africa is at the moment, and no matter what we do, in as much as we are gonna remain this corrupt, then we might never make it out of the block. Strange enough, the 3 African athletes, the 2 Kenyan and the Ethiopian, tied at second. So all they wanted was for the Chinese to win. They made sure they tied at second. Hijie, the Chinese athlete, won in a time of 1 hour, 3 minutes and 44 seconds. a second ahead of second place. So it was a day, it is also a day where Ruto condemned the Iran attack and asked Israel to exercise restraint and not attack back on Iran. We also had relief for Kenyans as electricity prices dropped further, as well as fuel prices. It was also a day where Rwanda joined other African countries in recalling the J&J children's cough syrup because it apparently contains diethylene glycol, a substance that has been linked to death of children since 2022. And cough syrup was also responsible for 58 deaths of children in Gambia. So be careful if you are watching or listening from Africa when buying any cough syrup for your kids. It looks like now it is the new killer that they are using to target African kids, putting toxic substances in them and not giving two hoots about it. 58 people were also killed in Tanzania over floods. Also a day where 15 people also died. 58 people were killed in Tanzania and 15 others died in Congo due to a landslide. Also a day where demonstrators took to the streets in protest against foreign forces, including the United States of American Army. And Jiba Jaba cannot believe that a Chinaman can run faster than a Kenyan. He's saying there is no way a Chinaman runs faster than a Kenyan. And there is no way the three athletes, the two Kenyans and the Ethiopian, tie at second. Make no effort at all to beat the Chinese man. And in the video, you can see them ushering the Chinaman to win. That is how corruption has been deeply embedded into us, from our leaders to us as the people, to a point that I have a chance of winning a race, I have a chance of getting my name up there, I have a chance of being a champion, a marathon champion. But now, because I was probably given a few dollars by the Chinaman, I'm going to let the Chinaman win. And that is what is ailing Africa. Corruption from the top to the bottom. It trickles top to bottom, trickles from our leaders to us as the people. Imagine staying up late at night to watch your fellow Kenyans in a race, only for them to slow down to allow a Chinaman to win, to allow a Chinaman to overtake them, and then scrambling behind them and tying a third. The two Kenyans and the Ethiopian. You know, if it was just Kenyans, you would say it's Kenya that is corrupt. But now it was two Kenyans and an Ethiopian runner collaborating in an effort to get the dollars. Jiva Java says maybe they were promised a KFC franchise. So join me tomorrow on the Black Hot Fire News Update. Job is coming up in a bit with her show, so make sure to join her. So I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. That is what was popping all around Africa. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. If you're watching or listening from abroad, I hope you enjoy your cold night. If you're watching or listening from Kenya or Africa, it's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.